Wife, Catherine, and his daughter and son-in-law. If you could please stand. And one more thing about the kind heart and generosity of Bruce Kent. The family's establishing a scholarship in his honor, and that was his wish. Thank you very much. All right, at this time, I would like to recognize excellent attorney Susan Sadian to say a few words to recognize Core First Bank and Trust as a 2018 Outstanding IOLTA Partner. Susan?
As you know, IOLTA Trust Fund interest that's earned on your trust accounts has been supporting law-related projects which help underserved communities in Kansas, such as CASA, Wichita Family Crisis Center, Kansas Legal Services, and many other worthy programs. Through outreach to Kansas banks, KBF staff have worked very hard to increase the number of participating banks and to get banks to commit to a base rate of interest on these IOLTA accounts by developing the Partners in Justice program. Through these efforts, IOLTA remittances are on the rise, which will benefit the programs applying for IOLTA grants. These efforts have also increased the visibility of the IOLTA program as well as the visibility of the participating banks. We are pleased to recognize Core First as the founding partner of the new Partner in Justice program. Core First has agreed to waive service fees on IOLTA accounts and has committed to a supportive interest rate on those accounts. Core First has long been an active supporter of the IOLTA program since 1985, and we look forward to working with Core First long into the future. Together, we're making a difference in Kansas communities. Please help me thank Core First for its outstanding contributions to the KBF. I'm going to invite Kurt Kita, who is the CEO, and Heather Scott, Vice President. Would you stand to be recognized?
Thank you, Susan. The mission of the Kansas Bar Foundation is listed in your program tonight. It says, the purpose of the Kansas Bar Foundation is to serve Kansans and the legal profession by funding charitable and educational projects that foster the welfare, honor, and integrity of the legal system by improving its accessibility, equality, and uniformity, and by enhancing public opinion of the role of lawyers in our society. The Foundation's highest award is the Robert K. Weary Award. The Foundation's Board of Trustees created the Weary Award in 2000 to recognize lawyers or law firms for their exemplary service and commitment to the goals of the Kansas Bar Foundation. Robert Weary was the initial recipient of the award for his decades of service to the community, the Foundation, and the legal profession in Kansas. It is my pleasure to introduce Linda Parks, who will introduce our Robert K. Weary Award recipient for 2018. Please welcome Linda.
Thank you, Judge Wilson. So I stand here and say to you, how do I introduce David Raybon. I mean, who doesn't know David Raybon, right? He's the guy that we all know and love. When he speaks, it's like E.F. Hutton in the law world. Everybody listens. So how do I go about doing this? Well, I can tell you that he's a past president of the Kansas Bar Association. You guys know that. I can tell you he's a past president of the Kansas Trial Lawyers Association. You guys know that. I could tell you he's a past president of the Kansas Association of Defense Counsel. I don't know if you knew that. I think he's the only guy who's ever done that. I mean, think about both of those organizations. But there's Dave Raybon. He's a guy who does a lot. He's the lawyer extraordinaire, the trial lawyer, I guess, extraordinaire, really. He's in the College of Trial Lawyers, as Dick Hike says, the college. And you probably also know that he served 2 terms on the Kansas Supreme Court Nominating Commission. If there's an organization that's worth a spit, Dave Raybon is active in it, he's a member of it, and you know what? He's probably been the president of it. And I should mention, he's a devoted family man. His wife Bernice, his family, he's all around a great guy. So how do I introduce this person who's not only giving of his time, but he's a pillar of the foundation. I was going to refer you to your program, but it's got the new people, but I mean, he's very giving if you look at what those levels happen to be. So honestly, I don't know really what I'm supposed to do. Is there anybody here really who doesn't know Dave Raybon? So my work here is done. This year's winner of the Robert K. Weary Award, my friend and yours, David Raybon.
Reminded me that previous recipients have limited their comments to about 3 minutes. Not going to happen. I want to thank you, Linda. Where did you go? Linda, we've been through so many things, as you know, through the years, and I'm just so proud and pleased that you were here to do this for me. We're willing to do it. I've got some thanks that I need to give. First and foremost, I want to thank my wife, Bernice, if you would stand. This is definitely a joint recognition. She's been through it all, and without her, very little would have been possible. I'd also like to thank my longtime partner, Shane Banker, all the adventures that we've been through and all the adventures yet to come. I'd like to thank Aaron Kite, my partner, and his wife, Summer. Thank you for being here tonight. I'd like to thank my good friend Rex Sharp and his wife, Lori. Rex and I are in the middle of about a 10-year project of recruiting new lawyers to Western Kansas through the Southwest Bar Association, and a lot of you have come out to our meeting. And finally, I'd like to introduce to you who I hope is the newest member of the Western Kansas Bar, currently of Kansas City, shortly I hope to be of Western Kansas, Paul Mose and his wife Melissa. So thank you for coming. You know, I ordinarily, looking out at this group, I'd be pretty intimidated by the people that are in this room. But I take solace in the fact that I know you've had a couple of drinks. So I'm not nearly as intimidated as I would be. One of the past recipients of this award was my mentor, Jack Dalton. I think he got it in 2010. And Jack is how I really found out about the Kansas Bar Foundation. We won a big case in Dodge City, and we collected a good fee, and Jack came in and he said, look guys, I've nominated you to be fellows of the Kansas Bar Foundation. I thought, Jack, what a generous thing to do. But then I found that he had only paid the first $100 of the pledge, and that we had to pay the next $900. But actually, Jack was right, because it's only by getting involved and being committed to it and making the contribution that you really make the organization what it is. And I know it was so important to him. So, I'm really pleased to join that list with him. The nuns in Dodge City kind of pounded two things into our head when we were in grade school. One was you got to serve a higher purpose. You got to love and serve something much higher than yourself. And then secondly, you got to help each other. And like most things that the nuns taught us, it kind of went in one ear and out the other. And recently, Sacred Heart School, where I went to grade school, celebrated its 100th anniversary. And they decided to put together a video and interview some of the alumni. And they came to interview me and said, is it true that you guys went to Mass every day from first grade through 8th grade? I said, that's absolutely true. What was that like? I said, well, every day from first grade to 8th grade, we tried to get out of it. That did not make it into the video. but it was true. But sometimes when you think things are going in one ear and out the other, they're really sticking more than you think. And I have found that those two things, serving a higher purpose and helping each other, apply in many different things, two of which I want to talk a little bit about. First, family, and then what we do here as our profession. So with your indulgence, let me tell you a little bit about my family. A couple of years ago, I was watching a murder trial in Dodge City, and a clerk came in with a concerned look on her face and said, Mr. Rabine, would you please step out in the hallway? And I thought, oh my God, what is Aaron Kite misfiled now? but she said, your father's been in a serious accident. He was coming from the co-op and pulled out right in front of a semi and was airlifted to Wichita. There are 7 boys in my family, and we gathered around his bed, as he fought for his life. And so many memories came flooding back, as you can kind of imagine. My mother sprung into action. She had the last rites performed twice. I guess to make sure that they were done properly. I noticed that the second priest that came in was of much higher rank than the first one had been. But he refused to die and survived. He's wheelchair bound, homebound now. But he did survive. But during that several weeks, a lot of memories came back. Our family, with 7 boys, we farmed and ranched during the summer. We built houses during the winter. I think we built over 10 of them while I was growing up. My dad bought a truck lot and a body shop and a salvage yard. We had so many adventures. My brother Rob has written 2 award-winning books about growing up in Dodge City. Now, if you could imagine, 2 volumes of it. Well, to explain that, the first volume was basically about my dad. And it got back to him that my mother wasn't really all that thrilled with that, so we had to write volume 2 that was about my mother. but we definitely had adventures. When I met Bernice, and bear in mind, I think I was 26 or 27 years old when we met, and we started to date, and it caused kind of a mini scandal in the family, because it was believed that we were, close enough related that, that eyebrows would be raised, if this union were to take place. So my dad, you know, I think trying to reassure me, said, hey, don't worry about it, I'm adopted. Okay, I had never heard this. I had no idea. I had no idea that he was adopted, okay? Now, this is in a town of 25,000 people. There were hundreds of people in Dodge City that knew all about this, but we knew nothing about it, okay? But all of a sudden, you know, as the story came out, and it took a couple of years for all of this to kind of come into perspective, it brought me back to an incident that had happened in grade school. We were at Sacred Heart School. There was no cell phones or anything. There was a blizzard. And our parents were supposed to come and pick us up. So I was waiting for my dad, okay? Here he shows up. He's in galoshes covered with snow. This very stern, we thought ancient nun who ruled our lives, jumped out of her chair, ran over, and grabbed him. Billy Joe, grabbed him, tears running down her face. I then understood what had happened because I came to learn he had been abandoned at the hospital as a baby. And the hospital was run by the Sisters of St. Joseph. The procedure is you notify the bishop. Okay, so they notified the bishop that something fell through the cracks. And legend has it, that when the bishop came back for an inspection sometimes later, there was a child running down the hallway of the hospital, and that was my dad. So they fixed that glitch, and he was adopted by a farm couple. But that nun was one of the original Sisters of St. Joseph that had been in the hospital, and to her, he was her baby. Okay? So this is how this man's life starts out. Now I'm going to skip forward through at least one volume of growing up to an incident that happened when I got ready to go to Washington. I had always known that I wanted to be a lawyer. There was just no doubt about it. And so you say, okay, you want to be a lawyer, you want to go to Washington. Simple enough. You enroll, you get an apartment, you live in a dorm, whatever. Okay? Not if Bill Raybon's your dad. You don't. He comes back and he goes, you know what? A migrant family's trailer house over at Ulysses burned, but it burned only on the inside, and I bought it for $200. We can fix this and move it to Topeka, okay? So we brought it to Dodge City. Now we worked on this at night. You didn't work on this was a fun project. You didn't work on this during the day. You worked on this at night, okay? And it wasn't quite ready. When I had to go to Washington, he goes, don't worry about it, you go up there. And then we'll bring it, your mom and I will bring it. So, I stay in the Jayhawk Junior Hotel in North Topeka. And my trailer lot is waiting for us, okay? So on the appointed day, I was told to be there. He said, I'll be there by noon. And what he had done is he went and bought a toter where he pulled trailers with. And his idea was, I'm going to pull this trailer up here, then I'm going to turn around and sell it, make some money. Okay, so I'm sitting at the trailer park. 1 o'clock comes, 2 o'clock comes. Now, no phones. Now, can you imagine, do you remember Ward Lloyd back in those days, how much time we spent waiting for people, not knowing where they were at, because we couldn't call them? But I knew better than to leave. I was told to stay there, so I stayed, okay? 6 o'clock, here they pull in. My mom and dad get out. They are covered in grease from head to toe, okay? My dad is in the greatest mood ever. Hey, we ran into a little problem. My mother stopped talking. She went and stood over under a tree, okay? It came out. Everything was going fine until the transmission went out on the interstate. He hitched a ride into town, bought a transmission, brought it back, and changed it on the road. My mother was not upset about that. She was upset because he yelled at her because she was not holding it steady enough so he could put the bolts in. Okay? So we get this trailer in. We get it hooked up. Everything's fine. But what I want to illustrate from that was when we were growing up, you were a cog in a machine, okay? There were 7 of us. There was 9 of us all together. It wasn't about you. You were serving something much bigger than yourself. You were serving this family. But, as I hope you see in the story about the trailer, we were there to help each other. I'm sure my dad had a lot better things to do with his time than work on this trailer. Which, by the way, when I got out, I turned around and sold for $700. And I have never lived in a trailer house since. You know, when I became a lawyer in law school, much as the nuns had done, our professors talked about the profession, what it meant, how important it was, that we were going to be officers of the court, that we were going to be an important part of this larger thing. And kind of like with the nuns, it went somewhat in one ear and out the other. But they also told us you should help each other. And I don't remember that sticking much at all either. But once I got into practice, it didn't take very long before I realized how important courts were. It wasn't long before I had a client that was their only shot, that was their only chance, was their day in court. It wasn't long before I realized that having a fair and impartial court was the difference between having justice and not having justice. But I didn't really get to do my part until much later in my career, the retention battle of 2016. Now, many people in this room did far more in that fight than I did. But I can say that it consumed me for the better part of 2.5 years. This was a serious and direct threat on the courts. This outright attack on five sitting justices of the Kansas Supreme Court, and then all the Court of Appeals judges that were up. And it was time for lawyers to come in and defend the courts, and we did. You did, many others did. But I want to relate one experience that I had. A big part of our job was to raise money. Okay, a lot of you in the room gave money, asked for money, so on and so forth. I was president of the Kansas Trial Lawyers at the time, and our executive director came and said, "Hey, did you know that the American Association of Justice, our parent organization, has a foundation like this one?" And I put in a request for $30,000 for this retention fight. Would you be willing to go up to their annual meeting in Chicago and ask for the money? And I said, absolutely. So I started to look into the organization. One thing I already knew, I belonged to the organization and I had never given them a dime. And here I was going to go ask for $30,000. I also found out that foundation was controlled by the past presidents, okay? Which, let's face it, were old white guys, okay? Many of them 70, 80 years old, sat around in a room and kind of decided who was going to get what. So I flew to Chicago, and it was in the top floor of the Intercontinental Hotel. They were in a big a big conference room. And the executive director came out and said, are you Mr. Raybine? I said, yes. She goes, whatever you do, don't go in there. She goes, they're in a bad mood. It's not going to go well. Let me just put your request in. I go, no, I came all the way up here. I'm going to go in. So I went in, and what the argument was about was the current president had directed $10,000 to go to his alma mater, and the rest of the board was forcing him to pay that back. They didn't think that was right, okay? So they had this big knockdown, drag-out argument. And so she introduced me, and I was coming up to the podium, and this old man in the back goes, "What do you want?" I said, "Well, we're having a retention battle in Kansas." He goes, "Hell, I know that. What do you want?" I said, $30,000. Another guy goes, "Hey, isn't your governor Bat Brown or something like that? A guy that's in the New York Times all the time?" I said, "Yeah." The other guy goes, "Hell, give him the $30,000, poor devil." So let's adjourn. People have to take sides in these kinds of things. We prevailed because we took sides. If we had sat back We know today that we prevailed, but we don't remember how close it really was. If you were on the inside and saw it as it unfolded, it was a lot closer than we even remember. But that was about being a lawyer and serving something higher. It wasn't about the 5 sitting justices, all of whom were fine people. It was much bigger than that. And the justices themselves realized that. This was about the integrity of fair and impartial courts in the state of Kansas. These attacks continue. Don't kid yourself, okay? They continue. We are 50th in the nation, I think still 50th even after the 2% raise. Our compensation is at scandalous levels. And it's not just the judges, it's the court staff, it's the probation officers, it's CASA volunteers, it's indigent defense lawyers, it's up and down the ranks. It's not over. This battle's not over. This battle has to be fought every day. The judges can't do it. The judges can't really go and ask for a raise themselves. We have to fight that battle. And thank you, everyone in this room that has been fighting that battle. But serving that higher purpose is only part of it. We got to help each other. And we need help. I think you've seen the recent statistics. I think the lawyers are the lead the way in suicides among professionals. Alcoholism, addiction, depression. Our fellow lawyers need our help. And I want to relay one experience that I had years ago. I got a call from my friend Mike Moreland in Dodge City. And Mike was a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, a good lawyer. He was an administrative judge at the time. He said, "Hey, Barry's in trouble and I want you to help me take him to treatment." So we went and rounded him up. It was a battle getting him in the vehicle, getting him ready to go. I said, "Hey, I got to stop by and tell Bernice where we're going." So it was late. It was like 11 o'clock at night. We're going to take him to Wichita. I went in to tell Bernice. I was trying not to wake up the kids. I didn't turn on all the lights. And I woke her up and she just screamed out. I didn't realize Barry had gotten out of the car and was standing behind me. she didn't know what was going on. So anyway, we got him back in the car, got him to treatment. It didn't take. He trashed the ward. He got kicked out, and so it went on for several more years. But eventually, he got sober. It wasn't that time. It was several times later. Barry got sober. Now we lost Mike. Mike relapsed and died of a heroin overdose in a seedy motel in Dodge City. But Barry made it. And then Barry became highly involved in the Kansas Lawyers Assistance Program, KLAP, and he went all over the state helping people. But as a lawyer, he was never the same. He was just I think his mind was just kind of burnt out. And he was never the lawyer that he had been. And it kind of came a time he was trying to help out the county attorney's office, and the judge came to me and said, "I want you to go talk to Barry and tell him it's time to hang it up." So I did. I went to him and said, "Barry, it's not working." And he agreed. He didn't fight it at all. And so I kind of lost track of it. Several years went by and I got word that Barry had died. And I got a call from a high school classmate of mine that runs a funeral home in Dodge City. And he said Barry had a pre-planned funeral. He had a pre-planned funeral and he wanted you to be one of his pallbearers. I said, "Hey, who else is on that list?" He goes, "Well, 2 retired judges, a current judge, a retired judge." He goes, "Do you know this guy?" It says this guy's name, honorary pallbearer, one-legged. I said, "No, I don't know this guy." I go, "Well, apparently the guy's got one leg and he wants him to be an honorary pallbearer." I said, "Okay." And I thought, "Oh my God, I don't want to go to this funeral." I said, "This is going to be a disaster. This is going to be terrible." So I pulled up to the funeral home and there weren't a lot of cars in the parking lot. But I knew that Barry had had a family, several marriages back, and his kids were really good kids. They were all adults now. And I got inside the service and his kids were sitting up front. And, just like you would expect, they were upset and grieving their father. There was kind of a bedraggled group of people, you know, sitting in the pews. Looked like they had a lot of miles on them. And so I thought, oh God, this is going to be bad. And so I sat down next to the one-legged guy and one of the judges. One-legged guy goes, hey, we're missing a pallbearer. I'm going to have to step in, help me out. And I said, okay. No problem. And the preacher got up. And it became clear that the preacher himself was a recovering alcoholic, and he had been involved in AA. And he said, Barry did a lot, and Barry was a good guy, and I'm just going to throw it out to the crowd. Does anybody want to say anything? Just silence. And I thought, should I say something? And then a woman stood up in the back and said, Barry Gutterson saved my life. And then another one stood up and said, Barry Gutterson saved my daughter's life. And I thought, I've been to a lot of funerals. I've heard a lot of good things, nice things said about people, but I can't remember ever being at a funeral where that was said. And it was said in front of his children. And I thought, he really helped people. We went he had been in the Army. So we went out to the cemetery and had full military rights out at the cemetery. And as we were pulling the casket out, Judge Reynolds, I don't know if any of you guys knew J.Don Reynolds, kind of a legend. He was a cowboy, retired judge. He has since died. His funeral was worth a whole nother story, Mike's down. His funeral was a whole nother thing. And he was a Marine. J.Don Reynolds had been a Marine. And so we were very solemnly going up to the casket to pull it out. J.Don goes, hell, Ray, the one-legged guy's carrying more than you are. But we laid Barry to rest. And I thought, what an example of how we can help each other. What a good example. What a good thing to have known him. My parents have been married now for 64 years. And they're both in not very good shape, at this point. But I remember back to their 50th wedding anniversary. We had a party down in my office, and we had family and friends and neighbors, and a lot of people had a chance to come in. And as I recall, we did what we've done several times at family events. All 7 sons stood up one at a time and talked about their parents. And we've done it both ways. We've done it oldest to youngest to oldest. I think that day we did, youngest to oldest, and we all talked a little bit. The only time my mother cried during the whole thing was when we played a collage of all the dogs that they had owned. But at the end of kind of towards the end, there was a cowboy standing in the back. He goes, I want to know what Bill's got to say about all this. It's my dad. My dad said, to be continued. That's the message I want to leave you tonight. To be continued. Thank you very much.
I love lawyers. At this point in the program, it would have been my pleasure to introduce Amy Fellows Klein as the next president of the Bar Foundation. Unfortunately, she took ill right before the dinner tonight, so she was unable to attend, but I know that the foundation will be in good hands with Amy Fellows Klein at the helm. So at this time, I have just a couple of remarks that I would like to make. First, I want to thank the chef and the wait staff at the DoubleTree. I want to encourage guests to use bus transportation to the party at the Brass on Baltimore. Buses will run on a loop until midnight, and they will pick up guests near the ballroom exit doors. I have had a wonderful experience as president this past year. I want to thank Jordan and the staff that have helped me so much. It is unusual for a judge to be president of the Bar Foundation, the philanthropic arm of the Kansas Bar Association. Judges cannot raise money, and so these people protected me whenever it felt like there was something that smelled like it might be trying to raise money, and I tried to fill my role in other ways that were hopefully helpful to the Bar Foundation. And I want to thank you for allowing me to be your president this year. It has been truly my honor. As a judge, I can tell you that there are many times when we cannot speak, and we depend on the lawyers to speak for us. And I don't have an opportunity very often to tell you just how grateful I am and how grateful the other judges are that you have stood up for us so honorably, so ably, with your time, your talent, your money, and your attention. It means a lot to us. I've worked with some wonderful mentors. Among them was Tom Wright. Many of you know Tom Wright, and he said, "Evelyn, the bar associations and the foundation should always be a lawyers' club, led by lawyers. Occasionally a judge or two sneaks in, and I guess that's what I did. But it is the lawyers who lead. And I've seen a lot of lawyers during the course of my career that began in 1985, when one of my mentors took me to my first bar annual conference. It was at Colorado Springs. Most people were at the Broadmoor. Another mentor of mine, Dale Summers, who also, I practiced law with both Tom and Dale. Dale's now a bankruptcy judge, and he told me a long time ago, when I was an associate, that he would always be a member of the American Bar Association and the Kansas Bar Association. He said, "Evelyn, you know, a lot of times the courts are a nuisance to the other two branches of government. And the American Bar Association stands between the other two branches of government and represents the judiciary. And it is extremely critical that we continue to have a fair and impartial third branch of government." I want to thank my husband for being here and supporting me. As you might guess, bar association activities take some time out of my day, and he's cooked a lot of meals, and he has provided consistent and loving support to me over many years. Thank you, Mom. And thank you all. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.